Good afternoon, everybody. We welcome you in this webinar. This webinar is on utility scale solar project development. As we are all facing the pandemic of COVID-19, everybody of us is in the lockdown period. We thought that let us use this period to discuss and share our experiences with fellow solar professionals. We will share our experiences from different projects during this webinar series, and I'm sure that it will scale up your knowledge about the solar project development. A brief introduction about Firstgreen Consulting. We are about 10-year-old consulting firm. We have done about 500 megawatt of solar advisory projects. We work as a project developer. We have done about 20 rooftop PPAs as a developer. We share our knowledge base on our blog, and it is highly visited by solar professionals. Many of you have been sharing your appreciation with us, and we are thankful to you. And we strongly request that all of you register and subscribe our blog so that it keeps motivating us to publish latest knowledge on technical and market front in the solar industry. My name is Sanjay Vashisht, and I am your faculty for this webinar series. I bring wealth of knowledge in solar sector. Many of you may be knowing me, and some of you who do not know, I have been conducting a lot of webinars as well as workshops previously as well. I come from academic background as well, so this academic plus industrial knowledge adds flair so that I can impart the knowledge part in much more effective way to you, and I sure that you will be you'll be sharing your questions. Please feel free to put your questions through the chat box so that we keep receiving them. And during the session or end of the session, we will be able to share the replies to your questions. So please feel free to ask your questions. Now, a bit about this webinar series. Basically, the solar project implementation process has been divided into 3 different stages. So the first stage is the project identification stage. The second stage is project development stage, and the third stage is project implementation stage. And that's how we have conceived it into 3 days session. The day 1 session, which is today's session, is on project identification. We will start today's session with this topic. Of course, after this, we will take up the issues related to the solar project development in the session planned for tomorrow. And day after, we will be discussing the project implementation. I'm sure the subsequent sessions are of equally importance to you, as we will be discussing a lot of tools, including financial modeling in these solar projects. We will also share our experiences, how project implementation goes to a task, and what are the factors we should be careful while implementing a project. Solar project requires a lot of planning, less of execution. So you should do it in the Japanese way. Put your more time on planning so that execution becomes easy. The agenda for day 1. In this session, we will discuss about solar technology and market overview. This will be followed by a typical PV configuration to understand how a project works and the different components of a solar project. Once you have number of projects, then we will be able to screen those project opportunities. So that is what identification. So you have got multiple opportunities, how to shortlist them. That is what we are going to discuss. So we are going to discuss the project screening tool also. These are Excel-based tools by which you can do the project screening. And finally, we will also discuss the process of assessment of your shortlisted project. So once you have identified and shortlisted project, then you have to do technical and yield assessment studies for that project. So this is what we will be going to discuss in this session. Just to give you a market overview about the global scenario in solar project development. The global installed capacity of solar is about 500 gigawatt as of December 2018 from REN 21 report, and annually we are installing about 100 gigawatt every year, which is a significant. So far, Europe have been the leader in terms of the annual installations, but now Asian countries are becoming leader, and the highest installation last year were by China, and India is also contributing significantly. The total installed capacity in India is over 35 gigawatt, and this represents about 10% of our total installation in the solar capacity mix. This graph you have come across many times. This is the graph which shows the technology trend. Every year you visit this graph, you will find that the efficiency levels of PV module is gradually increasing. The predominant cell technologies which are being used by solar industry is shown in blue. That is the crystalline solar panels. The cell efficiency in crystalline silicon cells has reached to about 26%. Monocrystalline technology is having a very good cell efficiency as compared to polycrystalline cells. However, bifacial and so many other technologies have come. There has been a competition between thin film as well as crystalline solar cell technology, and thin film is also nothing back. So thin film, you can see some 23% efficiency in CIGS technology has achieved. Of course, the thin film is not getting so popular as crystalline silicon. So 90% of the projects which are installed globally are adopting the crystalline technology, especially the polycrystalline solar technology. And once you have new technologies, probably the present technologies are going to become outdated, because the lab efficiency is gradually reaching to 50%, and what we are getting as a commercial available solar panel efficiency is about 25%. That is the maximum efficiency. The regular solar panels efficiency is about 20-21%. So that is what the technology, and there is a gap between lab to the markets. So this gap, as this gap reduces, then we will keep getting the solar more affordable. And in near future, we hope that the cell efficiency is reached close to the lab level, and we keep getting solar at a cheaper option, and making this technology as a mainstream technology for future use. Now, if you look at the typical solar PV components, Now, there are two major components, solar panel and inverter. So solar panels are exposed to sun rays, which convert the solar power into electricity. And as long as sun is shining, they keep producing electricity. The power output from solar panel is DC, which needs to be converted into AC power. And for that purpose, you require yet another device, which is known as solar inverter. Various types of inverters are available. We will discuss that in due course of our webinar series. However, here I'm just discussing the system configuration. So solar panel producing electricity, which is DC, which is being converted to AC electricity through inverter. And then whatever devices which we use other than solar panel and inverter are known as balance of system, which includes your module mounting structures, your mounting devices, your metering devices, your communication devices, and all. So when we execute a solar project, the implementation of solar project is a 5-step device. These steps include project identification, project assessment, project development, installation commissioning, and operation and maintenance. And accordingly, we have conceived this webinar to cover all these steps of project implementation. Of course, we will put less emphasis on the O&M aspect of this, but our webinar is focusing right up to the commissioning of solar projects. Solar has always been fascinating to the investors, and they feel that this technology is really good technology. It is a risk-free technology, and that's the reason many pensioner funds are being used in investing in solar projects, because the risk levels are less. We will discuss what all those risks, but solar is considered as a relatively low risk option, and if it is low risk option, you will find that the investors are always attractive, and that has brought the tariffs are also lower, and people are competing heavily to opt some good solar projects, and that is the reason investors are always looking for good opportunities to do their investments in these projects. It is legitimate and reasonable for the investors to ask a couple of questions, and these questions include: how do I maximize my profits? How do I have a good project which keeps me paying throughout the lifetime? How do I optimize my project cost? How do I select an EPC player who can implement this project to my expectation and it works for 20 years? How do I ensure that the project management challenges are minimal and project is handled in a risk-free manner? So these are the issues which are asked many times from the investors. In fact, we keep receiving calls from some of our blog readers who are in villages, and they say, "Sir, I have got a land and I want to install a solar plant." And just because they have got a land, they are not aware how much land they require. They just believe that solar laga do, or I will keep getting money, and not many people are aware that it is a cutthroat competition. You can't make money by selling your electricity at 2.5 rupees. So it is important to find a good PPA, that is power purchase agreement. So the first step is who will buy your electricity, and that is the fact that people keep exploring some good solar opportunities. So what are those options you have got? We will discuss those policy options, but typically whenever the investor is planning. So he has, the question, where, under which policy, how much generation. Okay, I have got some message to you that our webinar registration was over 200 people, and this platform could only accommodate 100 people. So we will repeat this webinar, and that will be announced shortly. Sorry for this intervention, but I'm thankful that so many people have taken out their time to attend this. This webinar is going to be less of technical. I have tried to make it as simple as possible, so few of you who are non-technical also can understand. So we are not going to do too much of technological formulas in this. So as we were discussing that, how do I install a project, where should I install, under which policy, how much will be the generation, will I be paid or not. In between, some government agency will come and say they know we want to renegotiate your PPA. So what kind of risk, how much land it will require, how about the land uses changes. Sometimes some policy requires that you first buy land, then only you can participate in a bid. So there are a lot of challenges to the investors, and if the investor is new, he keeps spending time, but he doesn't get a hold of some good projects. We have been working with various investors to catch hold of some good opportunities. Though the market is tough, but there are plenty of good opportunities still do exist, and you can find those opportunities with the help of some people who have a really good understanding of low-hanging fruits. So where are those opportunities available? Of course, some people from out of India are also attending, but this focus is predominantly in the Indian market. So, but you can relate it to your local markets as well. So there are opportunities in the NSM, that is the National Solar Mission. You have the state policies under which you can do PPA with the state discoms. You can have opportunities wherein you can install the solar plant as a captive power plant within the land available from our industry and sell that electricity to your client as a captive client. You can also have a third-party sale option wherein you install the plant some 50 kilometers away from a location and sell that electricity through open access to a third party under a power purchase agreement. So with your client, you are doing a PPA, but with the discom, you are doing a wheeling and banking agreement. You've got options related to REC-based solar project. That had been a very bad taste to the Indian people, but fortunately now RECs are being sold, but I'm not sure whether this is being adopted by many people now. Probably not many people. Lot of opportunities exist in rooftop solar projects. Of course, this webinar is focusing on ground mounted, but this rooftop is also a very good market wherein you can get plenty of opportunities. So solar investment under different policies, they can have site specific issues and identify various options. And once you have identified your project opportunity, you can also have a participation in the bids related to solar parks where all the approvals and land related issues are not significant, and that will also be beneficial to you. So these are the typical opportunities. There are many more as well, which you may be having. You can post them in the chat box so that I can share with the participants. So let us assume that you have identified and you have won a bid, or you have done open access PPA with one of your client who is buying electricity in Gurgaon from you, and you want to install a project through open access at some land which is 100 kilometers away from this location. So you need to find out a reasonably good site where you can install the solar projects. So for that purpose, you have to identify a portfolio of project sites. Okay, that portfolio you will do or with the help of some land aggregating agencies and consultants. They will help you to identify a portfolio of land options which have to be evaluated for your project. And it is equally important that you have multiple options before you start, and all these options should be analyzed and shortlisted in a trade-off analysis for each site. And once you have done the trade-off analysis, then the identified and shortlisted site will go for the technical feasibility for those sites. So you may be having 20 sites, then technically feasible, just based on site visits, you will be able to shortlist like maybe 3 or 4 sites where you will be doing the detailed site assessment activities, which are done more of a technical manner rather than just a visual site visits. So if you look at this, we have identified like a portfolio of projects, and you have got now various options. Let us assume that you are doing a project under a SECI tender, and now you are free to identify a project location not only in one state but on pan-India basis, and you have got recommendation that the states which are interesting to you may be Rajasthan, Gujarat, Karnataka, and Madhya Pradesh. And then you have to evaluate the different sites in these states. So how you will evaluate? You will evaluate it based on the solar potential on those locations. You will evaluate on land availability, power evacuation, then payment from state utilities, then the policy framework. Policies may be related to how much they charge you, or the land conversion charges, the local panchayat related policies. So many issues are there, and if you compare them, this table gives a qualitative comparison of different states. For example, in terms of solar potential, maybe Rajasthan or Gujarat are good sites as compared to Karnataka or Madhya Pradesh. Maybe land is cheaper in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, or it is costlier probably in Karnataka, maybe Gujarat. Same way, you can also identify the power evacuation, ease of power evacuation for these things. So like that, you can develop a state attractiveness matrix, okay, so that it becomes a basis for shortlisting that, okay, finally which state and which location you want to have your project to be installed. Once you have got multiple sites in a given state, let us say, then these sites can also be evaluated. So of course, right now we are discussing that if I have to implement, then I will have project sites, that is the portfolio of land options, which needs to be analyzed. And you would like to share one of the tool which we are using for evaluating the various solar projects. This way you can quantify the land attractiveness from a portfolio of that. So basically it is a multi-criteria decision making tool, but you have just given weights and marks so that you can find out which options are better. these weights are done based on our own assessment. However, the site evaluation can be done in three categories or three baskets. The first is meteorological parameter, which is solar resource related parameters. The second option is the land characteristics, which include, what type of land, its slope, its closeness, what is being done currently. So land related things are given probably a higher weightage in our assessment tool. And then the third consideration can be related to the infrastructure. So what type of infrastructure is available there? Are the roads available to reach to the location? How much is the distance from a seaport or from the highway, so that it is easy to carry, transport the things. The logistic cost is minimal. So all these factors you have to put into place and then work out a quantitative assessment of different land options. Once you have done the quantitative assessment, you will be able to find out that, okay, these are the 2 or 3 sites, and finally you do some negotiation with the sellers and all that. And post this, you will be able to reach to a level wherein you have got a site, and this site need to be evaluated from technical parameters. Now, when you are doing a typical solar project and how it will be implemented. So the project implementation is done typically under a SPV, that is the special purpose vehicle company. Okay, so a solar SPV is created by the project developer. Project developer is nothing but it's a entity which is developing this as a greenfield project. Okay, project developer is the entity which will remain with this until and unless he sells this project. However, the SPV will remain throughout the lifetime of the project. So the SPV is owned by 2 entities. These entities are like private equity players and the lenders. Of course, the equity is also invested by the project developer himself. Maybe post development he dilutes his equity and moves away. Typical debt equity ratio in projects are 70-30. In some cases you can get up to 80% of that, so it can be 80-20 as well. There are various other stakeholders as well, which include the utility company, which will facilitate the power evacuation from the project. If it is third-party PPA, then the role of utility or DISCOM is to act as a wheeling and banking agency for transport of your power. Of course, the developer will implement it through EPC contractor. So EPC contractor also plays a very important role in development of a solar project. So of course, we discussed 6 key stakeholders, but this list doesn't stop up to here. There are many more. So firstly, 6 SPV company, the project developer, the investor, the lender, the utility, as well as the EPC contractor himself. So who are the other stakeholders which are beyond this list? Now, the other stakeholders are considered as third parties who are working for the project for part of their roles, and each party has important role in implementation of the solar project. These entities can be termed as third parties. We as a consultant are also third party who are doing technical due diligence. There is a requirement by banks and financial institutions that a third party yield assessment study should be done. So solar resource assessment and yield assessment reports are also prepared by third parties, so they are also one of the stakeholders. Uh, there are agencies which also carry out the environmental and social impact assessment studies, and they also play an important role in justifying the relevance of this project, that it is good for the environment and having less displacement to the people. At times there is a requirement by land. Actually, all these studies are required predominantly from the lender's point of view, because his stake is 70% and the equity owner's stake is just 30%, and that's the reason it is the lender who dictates the project should be done in a professional way, and some professional agencies should conduct these type of studies. In fact, land procurement also you will require some agencies who are the land aggregators, because solar project requires large chunk of lands, and you need some specialized agencies who will do accumulation of land for you, and will keep implementing and aggregating this project to you. Transmission agencies or transmission support is equally important. In some states, the transmission facility is provided by DISCOM itself. Like in UP, if you are doing in Bundelkhand region, which is the DISCOM which will take the transmission line up to 10 kilometers from the project site to the substation. Though there are challenges to do that, but then it becomes the responsibility of DISCOM. This is to promote solar in a particular area. Now, coming to the agencies which are involved in solar projects, there are few more entities who have a great role in implementing these solar projects, and these are known as showstoppers, or they resist, or they come as a stumbling block suddenly to your solar project. So so far, we have been discussing about the various stakeholders who help in implementing solar projects. However, like any other project, the solar project also face a lot of hurdles, and these hurdles are the issues related to approvals. Sometimes the landowner, he changes his mind. No, boss, now I don't want to sell my land. Okay, there are issues with related to the title of the land, that you thought all the land is to belong to this person, but some more signatures are required and you got stuck. There are also many other hurdles which are like regulatory hurdles. So at times you got the land purchased, but the land needs to be converted from agriculture to non-agriculture land, and this cannot happen until some approval come. And there are states where a lot of challenges. I am aware, like Assam, land conversion is being faced as a big challenge to the people. Many more states have other regulatory issues. Sometimes you have implemented the project, but you have not got the transmission line installed, and there are challenges related to the transmission line approval itself. So these becomes like a potential showstoppers in the project. We should be careful, and this should not be ignored in conceiving a project. Keep an eye on these things so that they doesn't become the showstoppers. Some examples I'm sharing. Recently, ICRA has listed down the kind of barriers projects are facing, and a complete list can be found in this article. The COVID has also become one of the showstopper. We are yet to see how badly solar projects will be affected, but already the talk is that about 150 gigawatt of renewable energy projects are on risk. Maybe some risk related to investments in these projects. some risk related to the bid itself, like project was bid is open, now there is a gap, and maybe the module prices increase or decrease, we don't know in future, but there are risks. The COVID risk can be considered as the force majeure risk. Earlier, we were not so serious about reading the force majeure clause, but now it is very important to read the force majeure clause in your contract. So be careful that we are passing through the pandemic and this is a force majeure situation. We need to understand how this thing will affect us in a positive or in a negative way. So let us say that we have reached to a stage that we identified a couple of locations, we shortlisted those sites, and finally we zeroed down on a specific site where we need to do the detailed site level assessment. It can be for 2-3 locations as well as a as a identified shortlisted options. So that activity is known as project assessment. Project assessment is more of a site related, because policy and regulatory assessment we have already done while participating in the bid. So once you have identified the land and already shortlisted, now it is to do a detailed analysis. And one of the key consideration in terms of the site assessment is the solar resource assessment. Now, it is important to do a reliable solar resource assessment based on the available data from various sources. Though the solar radiation data is available from direct radiation as well as the on-site measurements as well as the satellite-based measurements. The solar radiation data from any source you will get in terms of the direct and diffused solar radiation. Direct means which is coming to you directly, and diffuse means the one which is coming as a diffused component to you. The area which is more important while you are executing is that you have to estimate the how much is the total radiation you are receiving, which is summation of direct and diffused radiation. It is also known as GHI, global horizontal irradiance. That is the summation of direct and diffused radiation. So GHI data is very important for us. The raw data will always be available to you in the form of GHI. However, this need to be recalculated at plane of array, that is the angle at which you are installing your solar panel. So you need to calculate the GHI data in the plane of array. Typically, there are various sources of data available to your solar project, and as I told, these are on-site data, which if you install the solar monitoring station before start of project activity for a couple of years, then it is possible. Otherwise, you have to have long-term data from the remote or satellite data. The remote or satellite based data have a high level of variance ranging from 5 to 10%, depends on the data sources. So the solar radiation data, so what are those sources? So you get data from NASA, you get solar GIS, 3-tier. These are the data providers which are providing you the site specific solar data. So the advantage is that the solar radiation data from satellite based databases is available to you for exact project location, and not only for 1 year, but this is available for over 10 years data, because you need to do a forecasting of your energy yield on annual basis. So again, this is not done by many people, but some banks asked that no, we don't need a projection for 1 year generation, I would like to have the projection for 10 years. So in that case, you require data which is available for 10 years projection. So I'm aware like Solar GIS and 3Tier, they provide you this type of long-term data, which is a paid data, which will be able to satisfy the queries related to financing from your lenders. The on-site measurement is done by a pyranometer, and this pyranometer provides you a very high level of data accuracy. But then you have to install this. It's a very costly affair. You need to maintain. You have to regularly calibrate the sensors. So you collect the DNI and GHI values from your pyranometers, and once you have got the on-site data, it has the highest level of reliability. And once you have got the data from satellite, then how you can have its projection on long-term basis. This is one example for one of our project site, which forecast data for 10 years, and annual variation. You can see that there is a significant variation in GHI values year on basis, but it needs to be projected. So this is a location probably in Rajasthan for one of our projects. Now, apart from the solar radiation data at site, you need to do a bit of technical assessment of your site, and the technical assessment of your site involves the review of not only the meteorological parameters but also some other parameters. So these parameters include the land parameter. What type of terrain? Is there a hilly terrain, or land which is relatively flat is more suitable? If you want to do tracking, then it should not have more than 1 degree slope. The quality of sand. You have to do a bit of technical study also to find out the soil properties. Once you actually go for installation, then you have to do a couple of more tests, which are like pull-out test and all. At times, it is equally important to check water availability. Sometimes water is not available. Sometimes water is available in too much. So please ensure that the water is available, and it should not be a wetland. Like too much water means it should not be a wetland. The land should not have too much of depressions. You should not put too much of cost. If it is a rocky terrain, then please check that whether you are able to do drills, and your DTH machine is able to move to that location. Otherwise, it becomes a highly challenging task. Here are some examples from I have tried to collect and share some pictures to you for a couple of our sites. So there can be a site which is a not so good site, which is rocky and lots of up and down. There are sites which is relatively flat. So each site has a different characteristic, and there are challenges to the developer, whether it is a flat land or it is a barren land, or if it is a too much of vegetation. Sometimes there may be a water channel passing in the middle of the site, and you have to ensure that it doesn't flood during rainy season in your project site, or it is not being you cannot stop the water flow. So please ensure those type of issues also need to be taken. Sometimes there might be a temple for which people pass through your proposed land. So this is a challenge. So please ensure these things are taken into consideration while doing your generally like environmental and social impact studies. They take care of these issues beforehand. So it is important to carry out those type of study. Uh, for example, there was a land in one of our project, and adjoining to that land there is a river passing by, and the land is on a cliff. So you have got a risk of erosion of the land. So appropriate care needs to be taken for the specific location. So it is also important that the flooding level should not be there to your to the level of your lower edge of the solar panel. And one important factor we keep discussing is that the land should be in close vicinity. So by this time when you are evaluating land, it is assumed that you have done a site survey, and evacuation route survey has been done, and based on that you are aware that mm, the land is suitable. So these are the technical things which you need to assess beyond your regular. Now coming to the part of technical assessment, apart from the solar radiation and resource assessment and land related assessment, uh, there are some other aspects related to the configuration of solar project. So as I told, the solar project is nothing but solar panel and inverter. Of course, the balance of system becomes equally important aspect of your solar project. So, for example, if you are doing a project in a remote location where the transport is a challenge, then maybe that type of location you should consider a string inverter. Say, for example, you are doing a project in Nepal where the hilly terrain and taking trucks of loads is difficult. So, even during further uh, transport, smaller vehicles can only travel. So that case, it is better to conceive a string inverter rather than a central inverter. Apart from the advantages and disadvantages of string versus central, we are just discussing the array configurations from the point of view of the project location. Similarly, if it is a land which is close to the equator, then it is good to consider the tracker, provided it is economical viable. Say, for example, you may like to do a tracker in a location near Tamil Nadu, but may not be doing this in Rajasthan or in North. This is some more parameters which are required to evaluate, different array configuration. Now, so far we started which number of site, portfolio of sites, then the site. Now we are talking about the site technical issues. Now we are talking about the site very uh, technical issues and how they are translating into revenue. So the parameters uh, which are used for evaluating, different configuration, that is a technical configuration or array configuration. They include the specific yield, that is kWh per kilowatt. Typically, you should have a thumb rule like solar project produce about 16 lakh units per megawatt or 1600 kWh per kilowatt. That is specific yield. The second parameter is a total or absolute yield, how much generation you will get from your project. Then you've got performance ratio. Performance ratio is one more factor which is considered part of your project analysis. And performance ratio, just I wanted to explain you. Basically, if you expose your solar panels, and solar panel generate electricity, uh, say 100 units of electricity, then what you get at meter is just 75 units. So this ratio is known as performance ratio. So what you get at meter and how much you generated at the surface of solar panel, this ratio is exactly the performance. So about 20 to 25% energy is lost in as system losses, ranging from the soiling losses to the AC cable losses, DC cable losses, transformer losses, and so many other losses happening. That is analyzed through a software which is PV Syst. We'll discuss that while we reach to the project development phase. One more parameter which is also evaluated for various configurations is the specific land requirement. That is, how much acre per megawatt I require. So typically the standard is like about 4 acres per megawatt. But now if you are comparing different configurations, like maybe 330 5-watt panel versus a 450-watt panel. So now this requirement of acre per megawatt will change, and you have less land, less number of module mounting structures, and less number of DC cables, and your performance ratio will also be better. So you need to compare a higher cost of investing in a better capacity module technology. Your cost of land will also reduce. So you need to evaluate and do optimization of these parameters. Capacity utilization factor is also one more important factor, which is nothing but the actual energy yield to the maximum possible energy yield from your project. So these are these are some of the factors by which you can do comparison of various array configurations. Sometime you may also like to do some more detailed configuration comparison. Say, for example, in this case, you can have the specific yield from a given project, and this is being compared for a 20, 25, and 30 degree tilt angle, and for a pitch. So this is known as pitch tilt analysis for your given configurations. So and then you find that what is your optimum pitch tilt combination. So again, I say it is a trade-off analysis, and you need to do it nicely. Coming to the one more example wherein you have got tilt angle and the pitch, and at various pitch how much you generate electricity, and you can do a calculation that how much is your absolute generation for a given location, and then appropriately you can find out what is the best tilt angle you have got for your project site. This is one more analysis you will see from one of our project example, wherein we have analyzed the different tilt and pitch combinations, and the generation on a monthly basis is being highlighted, so that you are aware at a given tilt angle how much generation will happen in which month. So if your winter requirements are more, then you can have a higher tilt angle, and accordingly you can plan your installation. So thank you very much. These are some of the issues. Let me recap the things we started in today's webinar about the assessment of various site options. So project identification and site assessment. What are the factors required? How it is to be done? You have to be careful about the various problems and associated issues. We have received your queries in the chat box, and we will be addressing some of them. Maybe we will address them in due course of time, so that you get them. Let me just see in my chat box if I can address some of them. What we can do is you can keep posting your queries, some more people, and then we will submit our clarifications to all your queries post this, because this time for the webinar is ending, and I will be happy to take your suggestions. Tomorrow is an important session which is on project development. So once you have identified, you have planned, you have identified the project, then the next level is to achieve the financial closure for this project. So now you have got a project report, pre-feasibility, DPR, and then the lender related issues, how to close your procurement, how to do contracts, how to assess the profitability, how to do the cash flow, how to optimize your cash flow through the technical as well as the financial parameters. So I'm sure that you will find that equally interesting. Thank you once again for participating in this webinar. We look forward to see you tomorrow. Thank you.